Hi, welcome to week two of 544 Nonprofit Management. This week, we're going to spend time talking about our role as a nonprofit practitioner in nonprofit work. So we're going to spend time this week discussing and dialoguing about our gifts and our talents and how we see ourselves fitting in and what we see ourselves doing. This is going to be partly kind of the why behind why we feel ourselves called to nonprofit work. So we're going to spend some time doing that today. And then at the end of this video, we'll talk a little bit about your research assignment for this week. So I'm going to share my screen with you so we can get started. I've got this quote from Mother Teresa, who I believe to be one of the greatest nonprofit practitioners out there. She said, "God has not called me to be successful. He called me to be faithful." And that's really what nonprofit work is. Nonprofit work is, when you lead nonprofit work, it's not found in your success. It's really found in your faithfulness. It's found in your faithfulness to your core message, to the clarity of that message, to the core passion of what you're called to do. And so if you're in nonprofit work, we have to put success off to the side. Our success is not measured really by profit and loss. It's not measured by how much money we earn or how much leadership we're given. It's more by our faith to get through the process of when we don't have the money that we need or we don't have the people or the volunteers that we need. It's faith in the mission. And that's really at the core of it. So I want to spend some time talking about kind of what your role and your value of a leader is. And again, Heyman and Crutchfield do a fantastic job of really kind of talking through this. So, and I think I've provided you a couple of other resources. The first thing we've got to do is we've got to discover our why. What is your why? Why is it that you're doing it? I talk a lot to organizations and teams about revisiting the shore of why. When you're in nonprofit work, the one thing that you have to hold on to, the one thing that has to be clear is your why. And I've provided some questions for you that allow you to do that. And revisiting the shore of why is basically this picture of standing on the beach looking out over the ocean, and you just see nothing but just water. There's nothing on the horizon but water. And you're able to reflect there on your why. You're able to see without being distracted by other things. You revisit kind of where you started and why you started, and you have to do that often in nonprofit work. So here's some questions that help you kind of get to the why. Why is it that you want to be in nonprofit work? Why do you want to lead a nonprofit? The first one is, what are the factors that move you? What are the things in the world? What are the things that you see that move you? For me, being kind of the leader of a Fellowship of Christian Athletes and the leader of an organization that is about carrying the gospel into schools, I go beyond that. My why is I hate to see people not encouraged and equipped to deal with life. I feel like the gospel is the best way to do that. And so the factors that move me are when young people and adults really can't make decisions. And what is their decision-making process? And do they feel encouraged? Do they feel equipped in life? And that kind of moves me. So you've got to discover your why. What are the factors that move you? What is the future you would like to see? So that's good too. As you go through your research project for this week and you're working on your final project, two of the things that you want to do is you want to figure out what are the factors, what are the things that move you. And secondly, and probably just as important, is what is the future you would like to see? On the other end of this, what would you like to see as the future, what your nonprofit is able to succeed or able to do? As we talked about last week, you may never solve the problem, but you can still perceive the future. You can still see what you want the future to look like. How does it fit with your values and aspirations? Your nonprofit work has to fit with your values and what you aspire to do, aspire to be involved in. If it doesn't fit into those, then it's going to be an uphill battle. And lastly, what is your definition of success? Because remember, we talk about profit world is about profit and loss. It's about moving up the corporate ladder. It's about gaining more leadership in what you do and who you are. But in nonprofit work, it's not quite the same. So what is your definition of success? And again, in your readings, you're going to see a lot of these kind of questions and a lot of these kind of things getting you to really think and uncover why it is you want to be a leader in nonprofit work. And motivation and inspiration are also very important in nonprofit work. And as we talk and discuss through this, what are the things that motivate you, and how are you going to inspire others? And so I've kind of given you how nonprofit work can do that and your leadership in that. There's 4 little points here. The first is clarity of personal mission and vision. In order to be motivated and inspired and then motivate and inspire other people, you have to have a clarity of your personal mission and vision. And so this week, as part of your research project, you're going to do a personal mission statement. Now, let me briefly just give you some points on that. Your personal mission statement is meant to be very clear, really no more than a couple of sentences that describe who you are and what you're about. A personal mission statement kind of operates as a boundary mechanism for you to be able to stay within when you're making decisions and you're leading your organization. So as you begin to look at the things that move you, what are the things that move your emotions? What are some hallmarks in your life, some things in your life that have happened that have shaped you to the person you are, some things that were absent in your life that you wish would have been there, and now you kind of have a heart for that. It must be crystal clear, because if your personal mission and vision is not clear, then the mission of your organization, it's not going to be clear. People need to know who you are and why you stand for what you stand for. The second thing is experiences that shape. What is your organization going to do to motivate and inspire through experiences that shape kind of what your organization is about? How do you create experiences? How do you communicate experiences? How do you champion experiences that happen? Because those are going to begin to shape your organization. Cultivating others. How you motivate and inspire is that you cultivate others, is that you spend time with others. I think one of the biggest pitfalls people get into when they're building boards or their donor bases is that they don't cultivate those. And I think Heyman, especially in the book, and you're going to see this in your reading, he spends a lot of time talking about how to cultivate your boards, how to empower them, how to get them collaboratively working within your organization. So cultivating others is important. And it creates communities of change. Motivation and inspiration create communities of change. When you're able to motivate and inspire through a clear vision, people see your heart and your passion, it begins to create communities that change all around the work that you're doing. Because remember, we're talking about transformational leadership that bleeds out into cultures and communities. That's what ultimately nonprofit work should do. So let's talk about your research assignment. I just wanted to kind of go through this to provide a little bit of clarity. Remember, this is a graduate level course, so there's not a lot of hand-holding. You have to kind of uncover a lot of these ways to do things and through the assignments. But I did want to give you a couple of just things to think about. The first is, what does leadership look like in a nonprofit world? That's a question you have to answer. All right. The readings do a really good job of doing that. There's some great academic articles out there that will talk about that. But how does leadership look differently in a nonprofit world compared to a profit world? And what does that leadership look like? We talked a little bit about that over the last couple of weeks. What are your leadership strengths? I don't know if you've ever taken a Myers-Briggs or DISC assessment or a strengths finder, but what are your leadership strengths? I'd like to see that in your paper, in your research assignment. What are the strengths? How did you come upon those strengths? How will those strengths help impact your nonprofit work? How does the way a leader thinks, influences, and acts impact nonprofit leadership? Leadership, strategic leadership, is about strategic thinking, strategic influencing, and strategic acting. So how does the way a leader do those things in a nonprofit world help? How does the way a leader thinks strategically differ maybe from a profit to a nonprofit world? How is that, right? We talked a little bit about that. The way we're a little more into causes, we're a little more into long-term change. We have to be more agile in our thinking and adapt quicker. How do we influence, right? We bring more people around us. We do more collaborative leadership, right? We empower, we cultivate relationships. And how do we act? We act methodically. We understand that though there's an end in mind, and though we define success differently, how do we act and strategize to get to that point? And then finally, the personal mission statement. I talked about that a little bit earlier. A couple of sentences about who you are and what you stand for and how that you incorporate that into your nonprofit work. I think the best research assignment paper will be one that really mirrors your personal mission statement, and we see the personal mission statement throughout the document. That's going to be important because everything that you do needs to kind of dovetail off your personal mission statement. So it's explained in your course outline about exactly what you need to do. And so again, what I would say is when you're doing your research assignment, just really make sure that you're researching things, you're doing some critical thinking. Challenge, push against some things. That's good as well. But make sure that you're giving as much detail as you can. All right, we don't want to hear as much opinion and that type of thought. We want it to be backed up by really important documentation, and you guys know what you're doing. So this is going to be a great week for you. This again is we're building towards our final course project of building our own nonprofit work. Okay, these are tools to help you get in the process. So have a great week. God bless. You're going to do great, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.